All right, so it's 6 o'clock on Monday, October 3rd, 2022, and I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Okay, seeing none. I will note that Councillor Brody is not able to join us tonight. And in the back row, instead of Johnny pushing the button, it's only Johnny Herrera, our treasurer, is there. So now you can see everybody in the room. We are going to jump right into our
pecuniary interest in minutes first.
Oh yeah, we can do that too. We did the declaration. We did that. We'll do the minutes of the previous meeting. Okay, moved by Councillor McKinnon, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hendricks. All those in favor, and that's carried. And now we're going to jump into that public meeting, and we need to have a motion from council that council convene into a public meeting for presentation of the Adelaide Metcalfe Community Improvement Plan at, we'll call it 6:01. Okay, Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. And with us this evening is Jesse from Republic Urbanism, and I will hand it over to you to go through the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just share my screen here. Okay, can everybody see that okay? Perfect. So I think it might be a similar crowd from the open house last time, but for what it's worth, we'll still walk through the details of the program and what we're kind of here tonight about. So my name is Jesse McPhail. I am a consulting planner who's been working with the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe to develop the township's first community improvement plan over the last few months. So tonight is part of the kind of final stages of the statutory approvals process. So 2 weeks ago on September 19th, the township hosted an open house where the draft plan was formally introduced to council, as well as made available online for members of the public, as well as agencies. And then tonight is the more formal public meeting that's required under the Planning Act prior to council consideration. So without further ado, I'll maybe just jump right into this. So a relatively brief agenda tonight. For those of you who remember the open house presentation, it was a little bit heavier on details. I will provide still a bit of an overview about the project and some of the background work, as well as look at some details related to the plan itself. But largely, I'm just going to base, considering most of the people were here for that presentation last time, I'll try to keep it short and sweet. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to chat further. So just a couple housekeeping notes, just in terms of what the statutory approval process entails. It would be similar to something akin to a zoning bylaw amendment or an official plan amendment. So this public meeting is required to be held by the Planning Act. So this is being held in accordance with Section 17 and 28 of the Planning Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the general public as well as the prescribed agencies. So that includes the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, as well as the County of Middlesex, and a number of different agencies that would typically be circulated. And the final note here for anyone interested is just that if you do not make any oral or written submissions related to the CIP prior to Township Council's decision being made, your eligibility for appeal or to be added to the party of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal may be affected. So if you want to retain appeal rights, it's encouraged to make a submission to the township so that you can retain those. I'll provide a little more details on what that entails towards the end. So a little bit about the project. So what's the project all about? Well, as I said, in 2022, Republic Urbanism assisted the Township of Adelaide Metcalfe in developing their first community improvement plan. What's a community improvement plan? Well, these are plans that are used by Ontario municipalities to improve lands and buildings in specific areas of the community. This is usually done through the use of financial incentives. So it'll identify some priority areas and target sectors to improve, and it'll leverage incentives to help get that done. So as I mentioned, this is the township's first CIP. At the very start of the process, it was identified as the ultimate goal for the plan was to create a economic development tool to financially assist businesses and community with projects throughout the township, not just in specific areas. Traditionally, CIPs had formerly been focused on downtown main streets and core areas, but over recent years, the scope of CIPs has been expanded to deal with, agriculturally diversified businesses and rural areas, and so what the beauty of the CIP is that it encompasses the entire township, and specific incentives are going to be scoped to specific areas and target sectors. So again, ensuring that opportunities are available both for the rural community as well as the urban community alike. In terms of the timeline, I did kind of touch on it at the start there. So this project was generally kicked off at the start of April this year. So we worked through 3 general phases. So the first phase was involved with sort of developing a background understanding of the community and developing a vision for the plan. The second phase was where we actually sat down and drafted the plan and reviewed potential incentives and leadership initiatives with township staff. And as part of these processes, stakeholder consultation was involved. So we had a public survey, and we did have a handful of workshops that were carried out to make sure that we were on the mark. So now we're kind of in phase 3. We're kind of at the finish line now, as you can see. So as mentioned, we did have our open house 2 weeks ago, and right now we're looking at the public meeting phase. And then it's my understanding that council will likely be considering a decision on the plan tonight. So once that is done, a notice of decision will go out, and that's pretty much a wrap on the project. So we're kind of at the finish line here. In terms of some of the background work, I'll just touch on this very briefly. So this is kind of one of the main foundations of developing a CIP, or any plan really, is building a strong understanding of the background of the community, the current context, kind of the policies that are in force, and really getting a feel. So as consultants, we don't necessarily live or work or do business in the community. So we rely on staff and members of the public and other stakeholders to really help us supplement our information and analysis to make sure that we're not missing the mark on anything, and we really have a good understanding of the community before we draft the plan. So towards the end of developing the background report, the sort of goal with that document is to develop a series of recommendations for financial incentives, municipal leadership initiatives, and sort of an overall vision for what this plan is going to entail. As part of the background report, as mentioned, there was considerable community engagement carried out. So this came in the form of a community survey, as well as 2 distinct workshops. And so one of the things that the background report did was sort of iron through some of the feedback received, and identified some recurring themes and some priorities that started to surface out of those processes. So these are some of the community priorities that were identified as part of that process. Just to name a few, so this would be looking at improving building on public amenities and space for the community to enjoy, focusing on the Center Road corridor as a core commercial gateway, improving general accessibility throughout the township, encouraging more attainable housing options. These are all kind of making up, the crux of the plan, and this is not an exhaustive list, just keep in mind. So these are just kind of some hand-picked priorities that were identified. So with that background report, with the community consultation and kind of putting that plan together, we actually have now our actual plan, our paper document that outlines sort of our vision for the township's improvement goals over the next 10 years. So the vision for the CIP is a vibrant destination and place to call home, balancing agricultural roots with urban amenities, embodying principles of accessibility and inclusivity, and promoting healthy lifestyles for all ages. And beneath that vision are a set of 5 guiding principles for the CIP. And so these principles are really intended to help the township in not only the types of incentives that are offered and what projects they want to support, but really ensuring that through the incentives being applied for, township staff can review what proposals entail against these guiding principles to make sure that they're aligned with the vision of the plan before those monies are allocated. So the 5 of them are to, not through Adelaide Metcalfe. So this guiding principle is really focused on creating a stronger sense of place and destination in the township, really getting folks to slow down if they're driving through, and creating sort of more of a destination feel throughout. An active and healthy Adelaide Metcalfe is the second guiding principle, and this is really looking at strengthening the presence and role of existing community assets like parks and heritage sites as sort of public destinations in the community, and as well as exploring opportunities for new township amenities and parks and natural assets to be created. The third guiding principle is Adelaide Metcalfe is attainable and inclusive. So this is really looking at creating programming and policies to support attainable housing provision, as well as encouraging support for projects and initiatives geared to accessibility and youth and seniors and sort of across the whole spectrum. The fourth guiding principle is moving together in Adelaide Metcalfe. So this is really focused on creating a more pedestrian and bike-friendly travel options throughout the township. Recognizing that private vehicles are still very important in the municipality as a rural community, but noting that there is some areas for improvement, with respect to safety, accessibility, those sorts of things. And the last but not least, certainly, is the reinforcing Adelaide Metcalfe's roots. So again, this plan wants to ensure a nice balance between the urban area and the rural area. So we're looking at providing support for agritourism, on-farm diversified, and sort of general economic development outside of your traditional kind of downtown core commercial areas on, home-based businesses, diversified farm operations, those sorts of things. So these will be used largely to guide plan implementation over the next 10 years as the plan is implemented. So in terms of a summary of the plan, so the CIP will support community improvement projects, as I said, throughout the township over the next 10 years. This is known as the planning horizon, or sort of that period. The plan can certainly exist beyond that 10 years, but this is kind of a general timeline where you might want to look at a more comprehensive review and see what's working and what doesn't at that time. The plan can certainly and is recommended to be looked at every couple of years to make sure that if things need tweaking, the township can make those calls and make any changes or revisions that are necessary. So as mentioned earlier as well, the entire township is designated as a community improvement project area through this community improvement plan. And then eligibility for specific grants will be dictated by the actual grant programming. So there will be stipulations and eligibility requirements that are listed in the plan itself to help allocate those monies. And then the final kind of point is that the plan isn't necessarily a checklist for implementation. So there is a number of incentive programs as well as a number of municipal leadership initiatives. These are more guiding materials than anything, but it'll be up to Township Council to determine which of these to activate or pursue from year to year. And that'll typically be done around budget time. So staff and council can visit these items and decide on what budget amounts that they want to allocate and what projects they want to pursue based on the priorities of council and the community from year to year. So in terms of the contents of the plan and what most folks are going to be most interested in here are going to be the incentive programs and the municipal leadership initiatives that are contained in this plan. So as you can see on the screen, there are 7 total financial incentive programs offered, as well as 4 municipal leadership initiatives. So the 7 financial incentive programs, these are geared more towards private landowners or businesses or building operators, and these are really geared towards the private sector. These are involved with actually matching grant monies to help with improvement projects on private property. With the municipal leadership initiatives, these are initiatives that the township can undertake as sort of the public side of improvement, and together these will kind of come together to form that sort of direction for improvement moving forward. So you have the private side with the incentives and the public side, which the township will take the lead on. In terms of the financial incentive programs themselves, I will be a little briefer here than we were at the open house. But again, if there's any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them. So again, there are 7 total. These are the first 4 here. So we have the Countryside Incentive Program, and this is looking at supporting the establishment or improvement of value-added agricultural businesses or agritourism operations, recreational tourism, any sort of kind of rural ag-related diversified use. This grant is going to be your option for that. In terms of the maximum grant amount that'll be available, most of the grants are looking at a total of $8,000, and this is typically made up of 3 different areas where you can obtain money through the incentive. They're all on a matching basis, meaning that the applicant will need to upfront the full cost of the project at the start, and they'll be reimbursed a certain percentage. Typically it's 50%. So these are split up among, costs for construction, labor, materials, professional fees. So if you have an engineer or an architect working on design drawings, as well as a building and planning fee matching grant. So any of those costly building permit applications or planning applications that can sometimes be a bit of a headache for those looking to get projects done, this will really help out those applicants. So again, the Countryside program really focused on the rural area, rural economic development, those sorts of things. The site beautification plan program is more focused on encouraging improvements to sites, the site itself as opposed to the building. So site beautification, you'd be looking at projects involving landscaping or hardscaping, improvements to pedestrian or vehicular access to the site, introduction of bike parking or other permanent site elements that are kind of separate from the building. On the flip side, you have the more traditional facade and signage grant. So this would look at improvements to 1 or more facades to a non-residential building. So you have a commercial business or something. This would be looking at assisting with improvements to the facade to really help beautify the street, improve the streetscape. And the last one on this page is the accessibility grant. And so this one, as the name suggests, this is focused on assisting building and business owners with barrier-free upgrades or universal accessibility upgrades to their business or site. Now you'll note that the first 3 have a total grant amount of $8,000, and this one is sitting at $6,500. The only difference with this accessibility grant is that sometimes the building permit applications and planning applications can be significantly higher with respect to design requirements and building code requirements. So often those permit costs are quite higher. So there's no limit set on the permit fee for this. So it could potentially exceed that $8,000, but it's done on a basis of a 100% matching on those planning and building permit fees. And the final 3 incentive programs are the additional residential unit program. So this is looking at helping offer more attainable housing options in the community by supporting the establishment of new additional residential units or secondary suites, granny flats, those sorts of things, or legalizing an existing secondary suite that may not be up to code. And this is something that's really important to help the folks that are not only living there but who want to have these things legitimized. The township can really help an applicant with achieving those goals. The second here is the Attainable housing grant. So this is intended to help with the costs associated with developing attainable rental housing options in the community. So again, the CIP will define a definition for attainable to ensure that any recipients of this grant are entering into agreements with the township to ensure that those units remain attainable for a set period of time. So this one, you'll note as well, as it has considerably on the surface has quite a higher max grant ceiling here, and this is because this grant is intended to fund by unit. So you can get funding assistance for up to 4 units, and this you could look at up to $5,000 per dwelling unit for the first 4 units that are attainable. And then this cost is also made up of building permit rebates and as well as professional fee matching grants. So the specific details of the grant are outlined in the program itself. But this one is done on a creating multiple unit basis, which is why you see that higher amount. And the last grant program is looking at the conversion, expansion, and redevelopment projects. So this is looking at supporting private sector investment in the redevelopment or renovation or expansion of existing buildings. So if you're looking to expand a business or a commercial space, this is the grant that would be targeting sort of the internal side of things or structural components of a building to allow for a business to expand or establish. So this is kind of the inside. Flipping over to the municipal leadership initiatives. And again, I'll try to make this a little more brief here. So there's 4 in total. The first 2, the first would be looking at wayfinding and placemaking improvements throughout the township. So this would be dealing with things like signage, branding, all sorts of things to create a clearer and more consistent brand for the township, help folks get around, really notify people of where attractions are, destinations are, tourism attractions, those sorts of things. The second is looking at center road urbanization. And so this program details a number of recommendations for improvements to the center road corridor as one of the primary gateway commercial areas in the township. The plan is really looking to focus efforts on improving this area for pedestrians, for businesses in the future. So this could be looking at strategies for design guidelines, improving safety, as well as coordinating with your municipal neighbors as well. And the final 2 municipal leadership initiatives in the plan are the public amenity improvements and the mobility, safety, and walkability improvements. So the public amenity improvements are kind of, as the name suggests, this is looking at investing in improvements to existing public lands and amenities in the township. So an example of this would be the Kerwood Park improvements that have been pursued over the last few years. Just looking at more projects like of that nature. Looking at existing public amenity access throughout the township, the creation of new public spaces, all of that is kind of on the menu in terms of recommendations for that municipal leadership initiative. And finally, the mobility, safety, and walkability improvements initiative is looking at really assessing areas along main roads for safety, mobility, and identifying improvements that could be made. These could be things like traffic calming, walkability strategies, and really working with the community to identify problem areas or issue areas with respect to safety and accessibility for the public. So that kind of wraps in terms of the municipal leadership initiatives and financial incentive programs. As I said, this is quite a brief overview of these programs. There are quite a few more details provided within the plan itself that provide for some recommendations and suggestions for what the township can consider in the future. So with the plan overview done, just in terms of the statutory requirements, I would just like to review. So as part of the circulation, the plan was sent to prescribed agencies and persons outlined in the Planning Act, as well as posted notice in the banner for the public. So to date, we have, so on the page here, as at the time of writing, we had two submissions received. The first was from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and the St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. A third submission was received late last week from Bell Canada. So I'll start with theirs. They didn't advise of any concerns. They thanked the township for circulating and just wanted to be kept up to date for future developments. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs did not raise any concerns, but did recommend that the township review its official plan and zoning bylaw to ensure that these documents are consistent with the Planning Act in the future. So this is with respect to additional residential units, and it's our understanding that the township will be undertaking that exercise in the near future anyways, so they're happy with that. St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority did not raise any concerns, but did recommend that the CIP include language to note that some development activity may require review and permission from the Conservation Authority. In discussions with staff, it was found that these are sufficiently covered under the official plan and zoning bylaw, as well as the Ontario regulations for conservation authorities. So that language wasn't necessarily distinctly included, though it will be still part of the development review process. Any of the so I did mention eligibility requirements at the start of the presentation. The CIP does stipulate that any projects do need to comply with zoning, official plans, Ontario Building Code, and the like to make sure that everything's above board. So at the time, no changes were recommended as a result of the submissions received. So the community improvement plan that you have before you tonight is more or less the final document. So in terms of next steps, following this public meeting, council will consider all feedback and comments received to date and decide on whether to adopt the plan or defer a decision. Per the requirements of the Planning Act, adoption of the plan will be by way of bylaw. So this is bylaw 49 of 2022. Council's decision may be appealed in accordance with section 17 of the Planning Act, as this is an exempt from ministry approval. If no appeals are received within 20 days following a council decision, the plan will come into force. And so, as mentioned, just again, if no submissions are made orally or by written manner, your appeal rights may be affected. So another thing just to keep in mind. So that's sort of the end of the presentation and the overview of the Adelaide Metcalfe Community Improvement Plan. I will maybe pass it back to the mayor if there are any questions or submissions received or any other items. I'd be happy to chat.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Mike, did we receive any information from any members of public, and has anybody joined us live on Zoom?
Through the mayor to members of council, we have received no submissions. We did have one registrant for the public meeting, but they are not in attendance right now.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone in the gallery wishing to speak to the CIP? Okay, seeing none. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Clark.
Jesse, I'm just looking at page 8 of your presentation, and I'm just wondering where you got the information to map out where those businesses are.
So for these businesses here, this was a combination of we used a combination of the county of Middlesex's business. They have a GIS layer through the county, so we used that and a combination of Google Maps as well. They do have some. It's usually community sourced, so there may be some inaccuracies here and there. So we tried to marry those two sources of information to get a complete picture.
Okay, so I have some comments with respect to accuracy. So on page 8 of your mapping there, number 27, I'm fairly certain Synergy Composites, those are two actually different businesses. So I'll note that. And okay. I'm certain that one is not there and the other one I'm thinking is not there. And then number 35 is not in business anymore at that location. And number 36 passed away probably 7 or 8 years ago. So just for accuracy of the document, I maybe could change that or delete them, I guess.
Well taken, and yeah, point well taken. One thing that I would note is this map actually was part of the background report as well. So this map won't be actually in the community improvement plan itself. But definitely thank you for the comments.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none. So we have the recommendation in front of us, and that is that the Adelaide Metcalfe Council adopt the attached Adelaide Metcalfe Community Improvement Plan under bylaw number 49 of 2022. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, thank you so much, Jesse.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, guys. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Okay,
Take
thank
care.
you. And now we're going to have a motion to end the public meeting at, what time is it? 6:30. Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that's carried. All right, it'll be great to get that implemented and get that rolling and seeing how that changes the landscape of Adelaide Metcalfe. Because I think if you look at any other municipality, when they put in the community improvement plan, whether that's in Stratford Caradoc or in Warwick, you can see that there's a great difference, especially in their downtowns. At Adelaide Metcalfe, we don't really have that downtown core feel, but we can see, we'll hopefully see those changes in the near future. All right, so we'll move into the correspondence. Our upcoming meetings are on Monday, October 17th at 7 o'clock, and then November 7th at 7. Recommended readings, item number 1 is from Blue Water Recycling Association, and it's their Board of Director meeting highlights for September 15th. Item number 2 is from the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, and it's the province supporting Made in Ontario fertilizer solutions for farmers. Okay, Councillor McKinnon.
I just had a comment regarding the ministry's letter in regards to the Ontario solution, which I applaud them for that, to be able to alleviate the farmers' dependency of imported fertilization or fertilizers. I'll get it right yet, but have concern that the government should be addressing the potential impact to the Sydenham River and other waterways and watercourses that may be near or close to where the product could be stored or produced. And also, I have concerns about the odor, the dust and the noise and how it impacts the neighboring. So I wondered if we wanted to send a letter to the ministry stating our concerns.
Okay. Is there any other discussion on this or any support in sending a letter as Councillor McKinnon has indicated? Yeah, sure, Morgan.
It's a great idea, Councillor McKinnon. I'd almost one up it because Roma, Sue and I were talking about Roma 2023 conference coming up, and we might even be able to have a delegation with a minister or two on the same topic. So if that's something council would like to look at, happy to write a letter and do a delegation, or do a delegation and write a letter. Just another option.
Councillor McKinnon, do you want to, I'm assuming you're going to make that a motion to send a letter?
Yes.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that? Okay, Councillor Clark. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing, Deputy Hendricks.
Yeah,
Just
I
push, yes.
I'm just want to make sure that we go there armed with all the information about the differences between fertilizer and manure and all the Nutrient Management Act, and that before we go do a delegation, we make sure we have all the proper information.
Excellent idea. And I'm sure Morgan maybe connect also with the OFA and different farming groups, agriculture groups, to make sure we have all the information as well. Okay, so that was moved and seconded. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, the next ones are action required, and it's a resolution from the municipality of East Ferris, and it's in regards to school bus safety. And let's remember Adam. Okay. Councillor McKinnon.
I was for support.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Clark, second that. Any discussion at all? Well, I'm not talking at all. So that was moved by Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark. Any further discussion at all? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, and that's carried. And the last one here is from the municipality of Great Highlands, and it's regarding increased speeding fines. Deputy Mayor Hendricks.
Well, normally I was going to let that go, but I had an incident on the Highway 7 today where I watched a pickup truck pass myself, the transport in front of me, my husband and our trailer in front of them, and my husband slowed down to let him in, and that truck passed the car in front of him and forced another car off the road. And I'm thinking, everybody I talked to today had the same experience somewhere on Highway 7. And I think that, I don't know what's happened since COVID, but people have gotten stupid. And so I am going to move to support this.
Okay, and do we have a seconder? Okay, Councillor Clark, any further discussion at all? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. And I think we've taken care of every single item except for the first one. So we just have to have a motion to receive and file item 1. Okay, Councillor McKinnon and Councillor Clark, all those in favor, and that's carried. So we'll jump into staff reports, and the first one is in regards to the Baker drain. And I don't see Andrew Neely on here, so do you want it?
Through your worship, if you would like to just move past that one and see if Andrew joins us.
Sure. Okay. Alrighty, so we'll swing back to that one at the end, and hopefully Andrew is going to be there. And if not, I'm sure it's pretty straightforward. So move into the next one here, which is the Information Technology Human Resources Policy, Electronic Monitoring. And we have Chris Bailey just jumped on the screen from the County of Middlesex. So I'll hand it over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to council. Just going to give you guys a quick background here, and then I'll open it up to any questions about the two policies. As part of the governments of Ontario's Bill 88, the Worker for Workers Act 2022, which has amended the Ontario Employment Standards Act. There's a requirement for employers with 25 or more employees in Ontario to prepare a written electronic monitoring policy and have that policy in place no later than October 11th, 2022. As the requirements for this policy are soon coming into effect, it is also important that technology users at the township are advised of practices relating to the collection and use of information gathered as part of this new policy. Electronic monitoring data may be used for auditing compliance, analytics, information technology security, mitigation of cybersecurity threats, troubleshooting, and in certain circumstances, performance and/or disciplinary action. The proposed policies set out the guidelines and procedures surrounding the collection and use of electronic monitoring information, privacy and confidentiality, and retention of electronic monitoring records. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Is there any questions at all? Okay, seeing none. So we have the recommendation in front of us, and that is for approval of the human resource policy, and then we'll do a separate motion for the IT policy as well. Okay, Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor, and that's carried. And then we'll do the approval of the information technology services policy. Mover and seconder. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks, and seconded by Councillor Clark. All those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, that was quick. Okay, enjoy the evening, Chris.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Okay, the next report in front of us is the Mayor for Mayors program and community signage, and I'll hand it over to Mike.
Through your worship, the members of council, you do have an informational report in front of you. Basically, just to give a background on the Mayor for Mayor program, which is was established in 2015 by Marilyn Butchery of Commonwealth Financial to support community improvement projects for 5 municipalities, namely Adelaide Metcalfe, Strathroy-Caradoc, Southwest Middlesex, Warwick, and Brook-Alvinston. Now, these municipalities, each the mayor had discretion to choose projects. I think in other projects I've seen they recreational trail development. I think one was a baseball backstop. So there are a variety of projects. Adelaide Metcalfe Council did start some of this in 2019. I think some of the approvals were in 2018, but the background is in front of you, and I have outlined the 18 signs, proposed signs, with an estimated cost of $7,321, and hardware at $2,296. Now that it is actually compared to the pricing we received in 2019 is much cheaper, actually even half of what we got previously. So more bang for our buck in this regard. But if there's any questions specific to the program or what we're doing, but it does fall in place of what we were just talking about with the community improvement plan, creating that sense of place, creating that brand for Adelaide Metcalfe, for wayfinding. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Is there any questions or comments at all? Deputy Mayor Hendricks?
I love them. I especially like the ones that are a little different, like our wastewater treatment plant and our commercial district. I especially like that one.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Councillor McKinnon?
I just wondered if we needed to do one for the Napier Garage, given that we hadn't made a decision on whether to centralize the public works. So that was just one of my comments. And I just wondered the size of the commercial, was it larger than the other signs that we put out, like the welcoming sign, or is it the same size?
Through the mayor to Councillor McKinnon. No, they're all the same size signs, just it is quite large, actually. There are the smaller ones that you see around the township, the Adelaide Metcalfe boundary ones, but they are the larger ones.
So Councillor McKinnon, so they're all the same size as the welcome ones right now. So it's the ones that you see out on the welcome, like the gateway ones, the Adelaide Metcalfe. So they're all the same size as that. And to your point with the public works garage, so it'll be both at the Adelaide one and the Napier one. We're just not going to distinguish between what they're called because, they'll each have a sign. Yes. Okay, Councillor Clark.
I know it's not part of the sign report, but there is mention in here about the donation for the AED. And what are we doing about that?
Good question through the mayor to Councillor Clark. So we're just working with the Middlesex London Paramedic Service to get that installed. We had the AED delivered to us about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago. We're missing an outdoor cabinet that we would need for that thing to be protected from weather or so on and so forth. So once we get the cabinet in place or delivered, then that'll be quickly installed in the park.
Okay. And then the last thing I just want to note is the other thing that Coulter is looking into with the remaining funds is a sign that we designed at the corner of Kerwood Road and Napperton to point people towards Kerwood. And then also the idea is to work with the community groups, the Optimist Club, and then the Kerwood Fire Department Association as well. So then we can get some information below it when it comes time to different community events to let people know that the fish fry is whatever Saturday is, or the baseball tournament, whatever it would be. And it's also with Napperton being a county road, it's a great road with the amount of traffic that's going down to get people to maybe take a turn down Kerwood Road to go through the village, check out what's going on there, see the park, and then hopefully we'll see more development there and more people are wanting to move into the Kerwood area. So that's the idea with those funds, and then we'll have to decide where those remaining funds will go. I'm thinking that they should probably just go towards the Kerwood Park to help with those park improvements, so that we can clear that off of the reserves list. So then Johnny has one less reserve to deal with, is the idea. So come 2024, the Mayor for Mayors program won't exist, and Mike can no longer have to say Mayor for Mayors instead of Mar for Mayors. So that's the idea. So the last sign that hasn't been designed yet would be that directional sign for Kerwood. All right. So if there's no other discussion on this, we need to have a motion that the report titled Mayor for Mayors Program Community Signage be received. Okay, Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okie dokie. So we'll jump into the Budget 101 presentation, and I'll hand it over to Johnny.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council, this evening we'll be presenting the Budget 101 presentation for Adelaide Metcalfe. This is will be presented at a high level to give an overview of what municipal budgeting is. This is something I would like to continue on an annual basis, but more importantly, during an election year, to provide candidates a good understanding of the municipal budget process as they may be joining us later this year. If there are any questions by council, please don't hesitate to interrupt as I'm presenting. So overall, what is a municipal budget? Simply put, it is a financial plan. It sets out the planned expenditures and the means of financing. It's a statement of priorities for the year. It establishes spending limits on programs and services. It reflects funding priorities and is the basis of financial decision-making. But a budget is much more than that. It is also a political document. It's more of a governance document. Council is the ultimate authority when it comes to the municipal budget. Here at Adelaide Metcalfe, we approve a one-year municipal budget. We will this year present a 5-year capital forecast with only the current year being approved. The remaining 4 years is a forecast to understand what the future looks like at Adelaide Metcalfe for capital needs. It's also a management document. It links a number of plans within the township, which many are currently being developed. This will only strengthen our budget in the future. For example, this is the first year Adelaide Metcalfe has had a full asset management plan completed. It has significantly assisted our budgeting process for capital, as Coulter could attest to. And it allows capital budgeting to be more to be completed more on a scientific approach. It is also a communication tool to inform and engage residents and the community as a whole. So the takeaway is the budget is a key planning document in achieving the township's strategic priorities. So why do we budget? First of all, a municipality, it is legally required under the Municipal Act, under Section 291. Council is to adopt estimates of all sums for the coming year. So we are looking to pass an earlier budget compared to prior years. Last year, there was some improvement, and now we're here in October, and we're very deep into the budget process. And there are significant advantages in passing an early budget. So unlike provincial and federal governments, we must prepare a balanced budget. So we cannot budget for a surplus or a deficit. So what does that mean? Essentially, it means that all of our estimated expenditures has to equal our estimated revenues. The township does have some tools in place to ensure we are balancing our budget every year, which we'll touch on later in the presentation. So in these next slides, we call these the 3 A's of budgeting. So there's accountability, allocation, and administration, as this will take us through the entire budget process for 2023. So when you look at accountability, we're accountable to our residents, that are taxpayers, that are current, former, and future, investors, businesses, and our creditors. We allocate and administer the budget to effectively manage and optimize human, financial, and physical resources, measure and track progress, and that's qualitative and quantitative, and plan and control resources, ultimately to achieve the desired results for the benefit of our residents and our businesses. Our challenge is striving to meet the needs of as many of our customers as possible in a fiscally responsible way. The process is further complicated where the needs and wants of our citizens are in conflict with one another. Since everyone's needs are all slightly different, it becomes a balancing act. There is also a frequent misconception about which services are under the control of local government and which services are provided by other levels of government. For example, paramedic services, long-term care homes, healthcare, education, highways, libraries, provincial parks, and even internet service coverage. Speaking on some of those, as we'll get into the budget survey after, but those were some items that did come up. As a lower tier municipal government, we oversee many things, but we don't oversee everything. We will work at controlling those costs that we can actually control. So Adelaide Metcalfe determines revenue requirements for the township through budgeting. So we're setting the tax rates. Another thing to remember when looking at our property taxes is the distribution of property taxes. Some residents and businesses might be surprised to know that not all of your property taxes stay here at the township. Your property tax bill is broken out into 3 categories: your municipal portion, county portion, and school boards. In 2022, 51% of your property tax bill stayed in the township. 29% went to the county and 20% to education. So with education, this goes to the various school boards based on the property owner's selected school support. If you look at the top of your property tax bill, you will see the allocation and where it's going. The revenue split among these 3 sources. However, the burden for unpaid property taxes stays with the township. Even if residents or businesses do not pay their property taxes, the township is still responsible to pay the county and the education portion. So each year, municipalities are challenged with balancing the budget as mandated by provincial legislation. This becomes more of a challenge with the rising inflation rates. While a municipality can incur debt to pay for large capital acquisitions, it cannot incur debt to fund day-to-day operations the same way that senior levels of government can. This is a key difference, as it means that we must identify revenue sources to cover all anticipated expenditures. In order to balance the budget, a careful analysis must be done regarding the level of services required to meet the expectations of the community, balanced against realistic taxation and user fee levels. When we talk about budget development, we talk about our priorities to deliver the highest standard in municipal service in a sustainable, professional, and innovative manner. It is focused on the delivery of core municipal services for residents and businesses, striving to respectfully balance the needs of our residents. When looking at a budget, there are a number of cost drivers to be considered in the creation, as shown on the screen in front of you. So, couple glaring items: economic trends. We're seeing rising inflationary increases across the board. This has become a significant challenge in 2022, but again, just budgeting to understand what those costs might look like in 2023. So taking a conservative approach. In addition, looking at the assessment base. So in 2023, there will be no reassessment from MPAC. So we're still working off those same 2016 valuations. We're hopeful for 2024, but we have not heard as of yet when that next reassessment will be. In addition, some other pressures we're seeing is some that are pushed down, for example, OPP or policing costs. Those rising costs are being passed down to the lower tiers, which we need to fit into our budget. There's also conservation authorities, similar type of item where those increases come down and we need to accommodate those increases in our budget. So here are the 4 stages of the budget process. We have really streamlined and professionalized the budget process here at Adelaide Metcalfe in the last couple of years. We are currently in stage 1, which is the planning and priority setting. We will then move forward to stage 2, which is the adoption after council have considered the draft budget. Like I mentioned earlier, we are looking for an early January adoption to take advantage of favorable tender pricing due to a large planned capital expenditure in 2023. We have seen success in the prior years by doing this. Step 3 is the implementation and raising, spending, and managing funds. That happens early in 2023. And the last stage is stage 4, which is reviewing. It's measuring results and reviewing policies. So this happens throughout 2023. So for the 2022 budget, that's the stage we're currently in right now. Right, so when we get into the budget, we have an operating and capital budget, which separating these two out was new for Adelaide Metcalfe in 2022. When looking at the operating budget, it's normal operating expenditures and revenues associated with day-to-day provisions of services, where the capital budget are significant expenditures to acquire, construct, improve land, buildings, engineering structures, or machinery and equipment used to provide municipal services with a benefit lasting beyond 1 year. We work with all departments to work on their department business plans, which incorporates all of our other planning documents. For example, the asset management plan. The asset management plan is now heavily integrated into our capital plan over the next 5 years, which is part of that 5-year forecast, as you'll see when we present the 2023 budget. Of course, just like you have at home, we have non-discretionary cost increases, which is becoming a significant challenge. For example, the consumer price index, as mentioned earlier, significant inflationary increases. And because we have capital construction slated for 2023, we have to factor in the construction price index as well. In 2022, we have noticed significant cost increases to some of our capital projects. The team has done a great job in working with some of these tenders that has come in to stay within budget. So great job on the team on that, but it has been a challenge. So this slide here kind of just outlines how everything does tie together with our reserve and reserve funds, operating and capital budgets. The reserve and reserve fund policy is to come, hopefully, either next council meeting or early November. So now that we have our asset management plan complete and the financing strategy, I will be recommending to council during the budget presentation that we start funding capital through reserves, as long as the township is putting the estimated amount indicated in the financing strategy away annually. This will allow us to smooth out our operating expenses. A simple example is our election reserve. We spread the cost out over 4 years instead of incurring the full cost in 1 year. This is the same principle I'll be recommending in 2023, but in a much larger scale, as we'll incorporate all of our capital infrastructure. So looking at our capital budget, these are some of the larger items you will see. Also new for 2022, we'll be continuing to present a quarterly capital budget to actual, so council and the public can see how we're progressing on these projects. Additionally, on our website, we have a project tracker under the budget and finance page to outline the overall status and timelines of our current year capital for residents to easily check up on. Like operating, the capital budget is also a balancing act. There is only so much funding available, and there are many things we need to consider with all of our projects. So when looking at our capital, there is a process that managers need to complete to request capital. This ensures that there are no surprises and that analysis was completed for the request. We also consider the impact on future operations, if there are any grant opportunities, and the consequences of not completing the capital project if it needs to be deferred. This is an exercise all managers complete when they meet with me to discuss their department's capital needs. When it comes to capital, municipalities have access to other forms of funding sources, such as grants from provincial or federal governments, donations, which we received in 2022 for our speed radar sign. We're able to obtain debt and utilize our reserve funds. So those are funds saved up over time, just like a savings account. So when looking at the sources of funding from the operating budget, just standing back, the number one source of revenue that we have is property taxes. We do receive some grants from the federal and provincial levels of government, such as OMPF, the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund, and that's mainly used for operations. Unfortunately, that one is trending downwards, so that's another challenge that we're faced with. We do receive OCIF, the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, and that is used for capital projects. And same with the CCBF, the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly federal gas tax, which is currently being used to offset some of the cost for the phase 2 improvements at Kerwood Park in 2022. We also have user fees, which are charged to specific residents who use the service, not the general tax base, such as recreation, planning applications, building permits, just to name a few. We also have other user fees related to utilities, such as Kerwood wastewater and Center Roads water and wastewater services. Again, we do have transfers from municipal reserves and debt funding. So looking at our operating expenditures, this is just a snapshot of our top 71%, which fall into 7 categories. And this is from our 2022 budget. So it's not a surprise to see salaries and wages as the top item on that list. This is very common for municipalities. Without our valuable staff, nothing can get accomplished within the township. In addition, transfers to reserves is the amount we set aside in 2022 for future capital needs. Again, putting money into our savings account. So now talking about the tax levy, this is to determine what we need to raise on taxes for your property tax bill. We take our expenditures less our non-property tax revenues. Those are the user fees, grants, etc. And the difference equals what we need to raise on taxes. So by taking a close look at how much revenue we are projected to receive, grant opportunities, user fees, and our total expenses will determine how much we need to raise. We then present this information to council, and council makes the decision of what we'll actually raise on taxes. If there is a shortfall, that's where the township has the advantage of looking at our reserve funds to ensure that we're not having any drastic increases or decreases from year to year. The goal is to level out our year-over-year tax rates for our residents, which is what is being proposed in this year's budget, now that we have a sound asset management plan and financing strategy. So getting to our property tax calculation. So how are your property taxes calculated? We take the current value assessment. Again, these are assessed by MPAC, not the municipality. And then we multiply that against the property tax rate. Again, that is set by the township. So this is the same calculation for everyone in Ontario, and it's provincially legislated. Again, this will be the same format for the municipal portion, the county portion, and the school boards. So this slide just highlights how we handle surplus and deficits. As we did in 2021, a report was brought to council recommending how we were to distribute the surplus. Again, that was for future capital needs. As mentioned earlier, a reserve fund policy is on the way. And finally, the role of the budget team. This is made up of the management team, where we walk through every account and are very detailed in our planning process. Department managers also consider feedback received from the budget survey when building their departmental budgets. Once the department budgets are complete, we review the budget as a team and provide council with our best estimates and project plan for the year for council's consideration. Council will then review the draft budget, make any necessary changes, and make the final decision, which is adoption. An easy to read budget document will also be prepared for the public this year, as we did last year, to help in understanding the plans for the upcoming budget year. And there's a specific role for the treasurer, which is myself, which we make sure we accomplish within the budget year, which are outlined on the screen there. So that concludes the Budget 101 presentation. If anyone from the community does have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. My contact information is on the screen. I will open up the floor to council if there's any questions. Thanks.
Okay, Thank you so much, Johnny. Is there any questions at all from members of council? No? It's very detailed. It was excellent. That's the most amount of detail I think we've ever got about the budget and how the process works and everything else. That you did an excellent job. And I sent a message to Morgan during the presentation. I said, be perfect if nobody asks questions during the presentation. We can just take this portion out of the council meeting, the YouTube video, and then put it in as a separate video on our YouTube page. So then people, if they have any questions about the budget, how it works, we can just direct them to that video. So then they can listen to Johnny for however long that took and learn all about the budget. Okay, Councillor Clark.
I'd just like to say thanks for the presentation, but what's really important and maybe wasn't done so much in the past is the timing piece. Like this is when it should be done. So I appreciate the timeline that's being respected. So thank you.
Excellent. I hope we will never see a budget getting passed in June ever again. Isn't that right, Betty Ann? No, that's excellent. I think you will have, depending on what the council turnover is, it might be a little hard to pass it in, say, January, just depending on how we can get everybody up to speed. But well, I won't. Everybody else around the table will get that done, right? Right, Sue? Excellent. All right, so do we have a motion to deal with this? We do. We need a motion that the Budget 101 presentation be received for information. Deputy Hendrick, seconded by Councillor McKinnon. All those in favor, and that is carried. And then I'll throw it back over to Johnny for the budget survey results.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. So for the second year in a row, Adelaide Metcalfe launched a budget survey to obtain feedback from the community to be used as an input into the 2023 budget process. As a council requested public engagement initiative, a public survey was developed and advertised on the township website, on social media, and on the final tax bill newsletter. The survey was open from August 15th to September 15th and received 33 responses, which is down from 104 in 2021. Survey fatigue, other factors such as staying home due to COVID last year could have played a factor in the overall results, but again, not too sure. Something to work on to increase participation next year. It's important to note that the number of responses when reviewing the survey results as well is a small sample size. A few survey highlights. Approximately 88% of respondents thought the services they received for their tax dollars were either fair, good, or excellent, and they were 74 last year, so an increase there. Approximately 45% of respondents would like to increase taxes to maintain services at current levels, service levels, and those are inflationary type increases. And then 33% of respondents would like to cut services to maintain current levels of service. So pretty much split in the middle there. The top 4 municipal services were garbage recycling, roads, using Curwood Park, and our landfill. And in regards to communication preferences, we found that approximately 72% preferred email. Staff will continue to refine our survey process to ensure we capture year-over-year trends, but also obtain more specific information to better understand context. The survey results have been distributed to managers for consideration during the 2023 budget. A full breakdown of the survey is included in this report. All written answers were summarized and any inappropriate responses were redacted. The recommendation is for the report to be received as information, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion that the 2023 budget survey results report be received for information. Okay, Deputy Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that's carried. And we'll give Johnny a break, and we're going to go back to the. Is that okay?
It's just a budget to actual if you want to.
Oh yeah, I guess we could do that. We'll just do the budget to actual. I guess we'll do that. I was going to get Andrew on the screen, but that's okay. We'll hand it back over to Johnny for the where is it? Capital budget to actual for Q3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through the council. As mentioned during the quarter two report in July, this capital report is something new for the township in 2022. It's a quarterly report that outlines our capital projects for the year, spending to date, status, and any relevant comments. Staff reviews the spending on a monthly basis, and a report is brought to council to outline any significant overages and a financial strategy to address it. Through the end of September, we have completed 5 or 11 projects. Again, a number of the Kerwood Park projects have been wrapped up into one. A number of projects are active with the details about the progress noted in the report. The recommendation is to receive the report as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there any questions at all? Okay, seeing none, mover and seconder to that the capital budget to actual report for Q3 2022 be received for information. Okay, Councillor Clark and Deputy Mayor Hendricks, all those in favor, and that's carried. And I will mention, just because it's on here under the Parks and Rec, the outdoor ice rink. I was at the Adelaide Public School not too long ago, and some of the kids there were asking about that. So they're very excited. The word's out there that there'll be an outdoor rink back at the Kerwood Park. So I'm sure there'll be lots of activity there in the wintertime. Okay, so we're going to jump back to the Baker Drain. Andrew is on the screen and he's there. There we go. I'll hand it over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My apologies for missing the earlier meeting.
No, that's okay.
So I'll make this quick as usual. As of April, the Baker Drain we had received a request to reconstruct the drain. They, after having sent out notices to landowners on the drain, the project was isolated to only one property. However, after the on-site meeting that was held in August, the owner of the south part of concession 12, lot 12, submitted a request to extend the reconstruction just past Walkers. And in this map, this would allow for both of his properties to have better drainage towards a new drain. And also it would allow for the road to have better drainage as well with new catch basins. So at this point, I would recommend that council appoint Sprayton Associates to expand the reconstruction of the Baker Drain based on the request received from concession 12, lot 12, Kerrigan McDougall of the former Metcalf Township.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, Councillor Clark.
Andrew, I'm looking at the map, so I think I know the answer, but there's a lot of heavy equipment on that farm doing work at the back. So will that impact the drain at all? I don't know what's going on back there, but I'm just curious.
Through the mayor, I don't know either, but I believe I don't think so. The drain project wouldn't start for a number of months now. I believe, now that I think of it, the owner is doing some drainage. I think what he was going to do was to tie it into the existing drain, and then when the new drain comes through, then his own drainage would then be diverted into the new drain.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because it doesn't look like it would impact on the existing map. It looks, when you drive by, it's more at the back. If you're looking sort of east-west, I guess, near the woodlot, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yes, I see. Yes, this would be more than likely his outlet for that area as well.
Alrighty, so do we have a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that is carried. Okay, thank you so much, Andrew, and our apologies. I realize now why you were late, but you weren't, because it was before 7 o'clock, because our regular meeting started at 7. So apologies for that.
No, I apologize. I should have been more attentive on the time, but either way, it's all good.
All right.
Thank you.
We're going to jump into our last staff report, which is the Municipal Comprehensive Review Background Report, and I'll hand it over to Morgan. And I will note that Stuart is also on the screen as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to council. And I got Stuart here just in case council has any questions about the background report, but I do have to say, Stuart, I think 7:15 was bang on, eh? Okay, we're trying to figure out what time he should enter the Zoom meeting, and we said 7:15, and we're playing with it within a couple minutes, but here we are. So I do have to apologize to council. The last time council received this report, it was a bit of a confusing plan and a bit of a confusing ask from myself. So as I say, Stuart's here to answer any questions with regard to the background report, if there are any. But essentially, this report came to council as a municipal comprehensive review. Given some of the feedback and discussion I have with council beyond the last meeting that the council saw this, we've really just turned it into what I would call a background report at this time, because one of the more significant activities or components of an MCR will be completed as part of the official plan 5-year review in 2023. And really that component is a land analysis of where we have industrial lands classified or residential lands or otherwise. During the official plan 5-year review, council will have an opportunity to look at what lands we have classified and maybe reclassify them. Maybe there are residential lands that have been classified as residential lands for quite some time that haven't seen any development, nor they may not see any development in the future. So council will have some pretty tough questions to determine or consider next year. Another example of that will be a potential consolidation of industrial lands close to the 402 in terms of industrial park. I know the province is looking for additional industrial lands, and that might be something that council wishes to consider in the new year. So essentially in front of council, I have a report that outlines much of the history in the last 3 years that council has gone through to get to this point, and to the official plan 5-year review in the new year. I've consolidated all of the recommendations from the planners report, the March 20th planners report in terms of the special policy area review. I've also consolidated the recommendations from Stuart's now called background report. They're consolidated into this report. And really what we're looking to do today is ask council to direct staff to really worry about item 14 and 15 in the report. Everything else can be considered as part of next year's official plan 5-year review. And really what those two things are, they align us with the legislation, the provincial policy statement, so that we can have new tools in the toolbox to handle things like additional residential units. But also, I think it's Bill 109 that's putting some pressure in terms of site plan control. Council's seen a report previous from staff to delegate site plan control to staff. That was at the direction of the province through this bill. One of the things that we're also seeing is compressed timelines for complete applications. Other concepts such as returning application fees if site plans aren't considered or signed off in a certain period of time. So what I think is number 15 in the report, it basically allows us to create a list of things that the township would be worried about before we deem an application complete, and that allows us to front end some of our site plan control processes. So in saying that, happy to take any questions. I'm sure Stuart's ready for some questions if you have any. Otherwise, I kindly ask council to consider and approve the recommendations in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none. So we have the recommendation in there, which is that council receive the Municipal Comprehensive Review background report completed by Finlater and Associates, Inc. And further, that council directs staff to initiate the process for a general amendment to the official plan to address items number 14 and 15. And further, that council directs staff to initiate a full Adelaide Metcalfe official plan review process in 2023. Okay, Councillor Clark and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor, and that's carried. Okay, thank you, Morgan, and thank you, Stuart, for all your hard work on that report.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll go into other business. Is there anything that members of council would like to bring up? Yep, Councillor McKinnon.
Through you, Mayor Curtis, to Johnny. Johnny, in the budget process of 2022, you had offered a new service that the township would be giving out, offering marriage licenses. Has that been implemented?
Through the mayor to. Yeah. So you'll see a report on the next council. We need to adopt some bylaws and been working with another clerk just to understand the process of getting it done. As mentioned previously, I have provided marriage services in the past, but just not the setup. So there's a few setup things that I'm working through right now, and there'll be a report in front of you at the October 17th. No, and most likely we'll just be starting to issuing licenses this year, not providing civil ceremonies, and which is most likely next year.
Okay, is there anything else for other business at all? That's right, we're gonna have.
Sorry, I didn't know we were gonna be providing the service of actually doing the ceremony. Wow, okay,
I
thanks.
could renew your vows if you'd like, or something like that in the meantime.
I'll be declaring a conflict of interest. You're in competition now. The other thing I wanted to bring up is there is an upcoming, it's a joint fundraising Thanksgiving meal drive-through dinner put on by the Optimist and the church in Adelaide. And what date is it, Heather? October 20th, Thursday. Yes.
I think it's the United Church in Kerwood.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't have the document in front of me to make sure I got all the details right.
I think it said you had to order your tickets by the 16th. I think that was the cutoff date.
Okay, is there anything for other business? If there is, I will quickly try to figure this out for everybody so we have all the details right. Okay, so it is Thursday, October 20th, 2022, 4:30 till 6:30 at the Kerwood United Church. And oh no, advance tickets only, $25, order by October 16th. There you go. Okay, and if there is nothing further for other business, we will jump into the bylaws. And we need to have a motion that bylaw number 49 of 2022, the community improvement plan, and bylaw number 50 of 2022, the confirming bylaw, receive the first, second, and third and final reading. Mover and seconder. Councillor McKinnon, Councillor Clark, all those in favor, and that's carried. And if there is nothing else, a motion to adjourn at 7:23. Okay, Deputy Mayor Hendricks and Councillor McKinnon, all those in favor,